Welcome everyone to the virtual workshop for the EUNIS Business Intelligence Special Interest Group. It's entitled The Times They Are Changing, and they certainly are. And doing BI and analytics during a pandemic has been an interesting experience for many of our participants. I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of Grieg Kibsgaard from NTNU in Norway, who is going to chair today's session. Over to you, Grieg.
Thank you, Jill. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're feeling all right. I can see that you have come from afar, and we have all come from afar today. We're all afar because we are at home afar, but still here together. So that's kind of good. Actually, I've been looking at the participant list, and we're actually from 23 nations here today and from 21 universities. And also I can see that we have several national infrastructures for educational data, research data. We also have quite a few different vendors, people who are working with solutions within BI and analytics and planning. And so welcome to all of you. We are going to have some nice hours together in 3.5 hours. We are going to stay here at Zoom for a while, and then we're going to pop over to EUNIS Island to stay at a restaurant and have roundtable discussions. So I would just like you to all be prepared to jump ship a little bit today, back and forth. So it's nice that if you can have your browser open. So if you have several screens, make sure that you have a second screen next to you where you could have your browser open. So I'm just going to start sharing now, and we're shortly going to present ourselves, the people who are here to be with you today. And when we chose this title for the workshop and BI SIG today, we did that of thinking of all the things that are going on in the world with the times, how they are really changing, and what does that really do to all of us. So as a pre-conference activity, we are the Business Intelligence Special Interest Group, and we meet always before the EUNIS Congresses, annual conferences. We always meet up to have some short pre-conference workshop, and normally we do this the day before the conference starts. But since we have now moved to the more digital virtual world, we are doing this the week before the conference. So I hope to see several of you also in the conference next week. So today we have made a program for you about exactly how the times they are changing. And so we are going to just do a welcome address here now in the beginning. And then we have 2 inspirational talks today. And they are both addressing exactly what to do and what happens with BI and people doing BI, people like us who are here today, when a pandemic hits us. And we're also going to look into more of predictive analytics. What happens actually to our models? What do we need to do with our models when a pandemic strikes? Do they change? Do we need to change them? Are they still valid? Are they robust enough to be used as models to make decisions upon? So we're going to touch upon those thematics today, which is really nice. And then after having these talks, and we're going to jump ship and go to EUNIS Island, where we're going to sit at the restaurant together and have the roundtable discussions. And here we have 4 different topics. We have one that is about setting up a BI team in your institution for the ones of you who are interested in that. And then we're going to have a talk about doing predictive analytics, and also storytelling as a method in the data warehouse modeling. And finally, how did COVID-19 impact your BI team? Because this is something that we have learned during the 1.5 years since we were all struck by the pandemic, that it has actually impacted us quite a bit, and we are interested to see in which manner from the different, from the ones of you who are here today, how has this struck you? And then we're going to have after we've done the roundtable discussions and we've met back at Zoom to talk about the findings from the different roundtables. So if you participate at one roundtable, but you're kind of curious what happened in the other roundtables, we will give you, and we will share all that at the end of coming in closer to the end of the workshop for today. And then we'll have a small topic at the end of the workshop, which is about the future activities within BI-SIG. And then at 12:30, we can all do really informal networking and jump ship back to the EUNIS restaurant, hang around there, walk around as avatars and meet each other and do some small talk and get to know each other. Because as a special interest group, what we're all about is really to build a network for people who are into BI and analytics and also maybe planning. So it's good to be able to meet and just talk and find out what is your strongest interest and what do you think that you would like to do within the BI-SIG and within EUNIS generally. So okay, so that is the program that we have for you today, and we are going to make sure that you can participate and be interactive during these next hours. So we want you to stay muted, and that is not so hard because now we've made you all participants who are automatically muted. But when we bring you on board to talk, then it's nice to be unmuted. Okay, we do have enough time for several questions. So if you are curious, and we really hope you are since you're here, then please post these questions in the chat function. And when given the permission to talk with a microphone, if you need to do that, then you ask questions by raising your hand. But primarily today, for the first presentations, please do ask questions using the chat function. And then as we move along, we will try to make more of you panelists so that you can also ask questions by raising your hand and talk if you want to discuss a little bit more after the presentations. Okay, so who are we here today? This is the BI and Analytics workshop team for today. So now we're going to do a short presentation of all of us. My name is Gry Kibsgaard. I work at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. And Anette, she's my colleague, and she's sitting right in front of our main building. So this is where Anette and Ivar, who is also here today, we work there in that building in the second floor. And we are a part of the BI team at our university, and we work in the Department of Governance and Management Systems, right under the rectorate. So that is me. I'm also the lead of the BI-SIG group, and we have a strong sponsor in Pekka. Please, Pekka, you are from the board within EUNIS, so please present yourself.
Thank you, Gry. Yes, I'm one of the board members, actually one of the vice presidents for EUNIS. I've been working with higher education for the last 10 years in 2 different institutions as CIO. Previously, I was in Aalto University. Now I'm at Brunel, and actually after the summer, I'll be back in Finland in Tampere, again a CIO position in a university. So I've been looking at, I suppose, different ways of doing BI and different ways of doing IT in general in higher education. And recent times, from my perspective, have been quite interesting, really. Initially, what happened with the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was firefighting, including BI people. So no BI at all. It was just making sure that university activities can continue. But now that we are coming back to some kind of normality, actually we have started using new tools, we have started working in a new way, the business is changing, and it has turned out that business intelligence is more important than ever. So that's perhaps the reason why I'm here, and I'm really looking forward to the sessions and to the workshop discussions we are going to have.
That's very good, Pekka. Thank you. And also with us today, we also have Anette. Please introduce yourself.
Morning, everybody. My name is Anette Ludvigsen. As well as Gry and Ivar, I work at NTNU at the Division of Governance and Management Systems. So my background is in social economy, And that was short about me.
Thank you, Anette. Please, Ivar.
Yeah, well, hi, I'm Ivar Pettersen. I also work at the same division as Gry and Anette. I have a PhD in economics from this university. Yes, and on a daily basis, I provide numbers and analysis to people around this university.
Thank you, Ivar. And we also have Bene here.
Hi, I'm Bene. I am the BI manager at Ghent University. Our BI team is situated in the IT department of the university. And my background is not informatics or economics or whatever. I'm a veterinarian. So there's something special.
That's true, Bene. Okay, and also here today we have Elsa.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all. I am a professor at ISCTE, which is the University Institute of Lisbon in Portugal. And I've been working with BI and data warehouse for more than 20 years now. And I hope to share a very nice discussion with you in the roundtable around storytelling as a method to actually being used for data warehouse modeling.
That's very good, Elsa, and welcome to all of you. Okay, you guys, what would be nice now is if you could write in the chat you write your job title and your institution. Where do you work? Of course, I have the participant list, but it would be nice if you would like to present yourself, all you who are here with us today, if you would like to shortly just to say hello and I do this, I work with that, that would be nice. Good morning, Gert. Good morning, Matt. Hi, Ragnar. Hi, Yamuna. Nice that you're here. Hi, Inger. And Pedro, long time no see, welcome. And let's see who more. Oh, Kerstin, she's here. Oh, and here we have somebody who is a European Director for International EdTech Standards in IMS Global. So data is very important to my work. Somebody is saying that's good. Then we are in the right place for today. We're truly going to talk about data and how to model them and use them and make sense of them and make decisions on the behalf of them. Okay, great. So just continue sharing in the chat and we will move forward in the program. Our first presenter today, Bene, she can start to get ready very soon. First, I'm just going to tell you very shortly about BI-SIG. We are a business intelligence special interest group. These are our goals. And these are the things that we actually work with within the business intelligence special interest group. We really like to do some networking and share activities and also learn from each other. So we try to be very informal in how we work and to be very inclusive and to have a very, very low threshold for sharing experiences. So that is why also we have decided that we wanted to do this networking activity at the EUNIS restaurant at the end of the workshop today. So we hope to have as many of you taking part in the roundtable discussions and also in the networking activity in the restaurant afterwards. And then our first speaker today is Bene. Bene Lamote, she's the BI manager at Ghent University in Belgium. And she's going to give us a live demo today about how she experienced the pandemic and how that really changed their work at the Ghent University and in her BI team. So welcome, Bene, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I will share my screen. I hope that works well. Can someone just give a sign that you all see my screen? Yes, thank you. And then I see you there. Okay, good morning, everybody again. My presentation, I will talk about a new model that we developed in a short time in the middle of the first, let's say, wave of the pandemic. At the time that students had to do their exams in June last year. And we had to build a new model for evaluating the students, which was called the Corona Check tool, a very original name. I need my controls on the screen. Yes, okay. So on the agenda of my talk, I will first tell a little bit about how evaluation of students is done at Ghent University. You need a little bit of context to understand how the tool works or what the purpose of the tool is. Then a short line about how it all started, because we wanted to know if there was a possible impact of COVID-19 on the students' results. And then I will talk about the tool that we developed, some information about the purpose of the tool, the challenges we had, and then as results, I will give you a live demo. I hope it will work, the live demo. It's always tricky to do live demos, so if not, I did prepare some slides as a backup plan. And the results that came out of that tool, you will see that the result was actually that we needed a sequel for that tool. Not because of the pandemic anymore, but because they wanted to incorporate it in the normal processes. So that sequel was the evaluation reflection tool. And then at the end, I will give you some overall conclusions of the experience we had developing this tool. So first, some context on evaluation of the students at Ghent University. The evaluation framework is actually, there's two big players, let's say, in evaluations. There's either the role of the lecturer, and the lecturer, he does the assessment per course unit, and every result there is a single examination mark. It can either be a mark between 0 and 20, so, and if you have 10 or higher, you pass the course and you get a credit for that course. And some courses just have a pass-fail mark. That's very exceptional, and in our Corona Check tool, we did not treat those actually. So that's one part. For each course, the lecturer is fully responsible of giving you the marks and decide if you have a credit or not for that course. But then in the second player is the examination boards. And the examination boards, they do the appraisal. So they actually decide if you pass or fail for a deliberation set, which is a set of courses, which each faculty or each program can decide how this set is built up. Or for the whole study program, it's the examination board who will decide, you as a student, do you pass or fail in the end to have your degree in this study program. In the framework, it is foreseen, the existing model before COVID-19 already, that there are a lot of automatic calculations. Some of the deliberations for some deficits, it's based on weighted marks. If you have small deficits for courses in the whole, then you can automatically be deliberated to grant you, to pass you as a student for the program, even if you still have some deficits in some courses. So you might have 1 or 2 courses with an 8 or a 9 for the whole study program, and they will decide that you still pass the study program. You will never get a credit for that course, but you will pass the set or the program. And the other responsibility for the examination board is to give the grade of merits. These also, they are usually, they are calculated automatically based again on weighted marks of all the course units which are made up which make up the program that you follow as a student. Now, the examination board, they will do a deliberation twice a year, I mean, with every exam period. And they get the result of these automatic calculations. And in exceptional cases, they can decide to do some extra deliberations because there were special cases, and they can also give extra grade of merits if needed, which is done by voting. And very important, the examination boards, they can never modify the marks which were given by the lecturer. So it's a split responsibility. A credit for a course is given by the lecturer. The pass for a study program is decided by the examination boards. So that's the background that you need to know to understand what we did in the tool the new model that we had to develop. So then COVID-19 came. And the university, they were wondering, will there be an impact on students' results? So we had a professor in statistics at university who did a pre-study. At that moment, we as a BI team, we were not involved yet. And he checked, can we see if there is a negative impact on study results because of COVID? So he did a study of the examination marks of all the courses historically, if the distribution of the marks was stationary. Was it stable throughout the years? And he did a study on all of the courses of the Ghent University to see if you could see the trends that it was usually stationary, the distribution of marks. And if for those courses, do we have enough courses? Because there's so many courses in so many programs, you could find some courses where it is the case, but he did find that there's a lot of courses where we do find this stationarity in distribution of the marks, and that we also have enough courses where you could build on that stationarity, because a lot of courses have a lot of students. If you only have a course with 20 students, you cannot build a model on statistics because there's too much variation. But if you have a lot of courses with a lot of students, you can build a model on that. So that was the first thing, that he indeed saw that this stationarity could be shown throughout the years, and that we can say that if we say every generation of students, they all have to be as smart as the previous ones, then we can build a model based on this stationarity. Now, if we would see that there is a negative impact of COVID, and we see that distribution has changed compared to the historical distribution, is there a way to intervene in the marks? And so he proposed a formula to adapt marks that were given by the lecturer in order to obtain a similar distribution as the marks of previous years. So that would be the Corona check, saying, can I check if there was a negative impact, that students have grades, marks that are with another distribution than other years? And if we get lower marks, do we have a formula to change those marks to get the same distribution as we had in the previous years? And based on his findings, the university board decided to apply this check. They wanted every lecturer to do the check and see, is there an impact on the results of my course? And then every lecturer should decide, okay, I see if there is an impact. Can I do the adaptation which is foreseen by the formula to move the distribution to the same range as the previous years? And then they came to us. They said, okay, we want to do this, but we have so many lecturers and they all need to do this in the same way. Can you build a tool for the lecturers to give the information they need? So we started, the 10th of June was the first day they contacted us, and they said, this is what we need. We need a tool on the one hand for a lecturer so that they can check their marks of their courses. Is there a difference in distribution compared to previous years? And if there is a difference, please present the adaptation that I should do to get a similar distribution. And then the lecturer, he has to decide, do I accept this adaptation, yes or no? If I don't accept the adaptation, I have to give a clear motivation. It can be statistical reasons, it can be educational reasons, because last year's it was another lecturer, because I changed the contents of the way of the examination. So it could be very normal that marks are different. So they had to motivate why they did not accept the adaptation that was foreseen in the tool if distribution was different. So that was one part. And then after all the lecturers had given their marks and everything came together at the moment of deliberation, we also need to give insight for the examination boards and to see if you look at the whole set of results in a deliberation set or in a program, can I see if the results of this, all of this set, if results are still lower than previous years. We also need to check if, even if we did some tried to compensate something, do we still have the same results as of the previous years? And if not, is there a need to intervene? The only way that an examination could intervene was look at the numbers and see if things are very bad, that they could do some extra deliberations. And they also even looked at the grade of merits. Do we have the same amount of grades as other years? Because they could also decide to lower the threshold to give a grade of merit if needed. Very important was also that the examination boards, they needed to avoid a double compensation. See if indeed lecturers had already compensated by giving extra marks and that they had accepted the adaptation of the mark, then the examination board should not be also extra deliberating those students. We don't want to compensate double for those negative impacts. So that was the purpose of the tool that we needed to build. And there were some challenges because, as I said, we only got the first information on the 10th of June. 3 weeks later, everything needed to be ready. For everybody, the tool needed to be ready. So in 3 weeks' time, we needed to have everything analyzed, developed, tested, and ready for use. So that was a big challenge. We did not have any time for real training of the end users because as of the moment it was ready, they needed to really use. It was a very intense period also for lecturers because they all were doing exams and grading, etc. So we needed to make sure that all the communication was very good and that all the instructions that they needed were in the tool. Then there were some typical BI challenges, which were for us, let's say, the easiest ones, because that's what we do day to day. Our day-to-day work is doing BI. So we had to make a calculation model based on the information that we had from the professor on his models. And we had to do some mapping rules typically, because you can say, okay, I have a course, it has changed a little bit, but actually, so it got a new code or a new name. So I could not compare with the history, but then there was a way to say, okay, but that course actually is the same one as the previous course. Can you please map them together so that I do have a history so that I can check the distribution historically? But those are really typical BI stuff, what I call. The reporting and visualization is what we live for, let's say, and we build it to make to support all of the decision making. Some special things about the reporting was that it was a little bit workflow driven. And what I call workflow driven was because it was based on the results in a first step. Once the grades were charged in the system, then depending on, for instance, are there enough students in the course? If not, then there's not enough numbers for doing the statistics. So the tool itself did not present any adaptation. The model did not calculate the adaptation because it decided there's not enough students to do this calculation, or we do not have enough historical marks, so you cannot compare the results. If the formula resulted in an adaptation, in no adaptation, because it said, well, very good, your marks distribution is actually the same as in the previous years, then you could see as a result, you have no changes to be done, and you can just say, yes, I did the check, and it was all captured, but then you did not have to motivate anything anymore. If there was a possible adaptation, you got another screen, which made it possible for the lecturer to enter his choice. Do I adapt the marks, or I don't adapt the marks, and I enter my motivation? And if you did accept the adaptation, then you could download the new exam results, which you had to upload again in the operational system. In the 3 weeks time we had, there was not enough time to make an automated link between the operational system where the grades are all entered and our system in both ways. So that was the hardest thing, that all the lecturers, they had to charge the data into our system. We did calculations. If it was adapted, they had to download again and upload it in the grade system, let's say. But all of that was still typical BI. The non-typical BI functionalities that we needed to include in this BI tool for me were that a lot of users had to do input, their marks. And that was a very challenging thing, because we only wanted to make sure that for one course, one person can only change the marks. We don't want several persons at the same time doing evaluation of the marks. There's only one truth for one course. That's why we chose the upload functionality with Excel, with a real strict template they had to follow. I think at the moment we did some help desk. I think most of the question was because they did not follow the template. It was that manual part of the tool which was the hardest one to give support for. At the moment that we needed the capturing of their decision, do I agree, I don't agree, then I have to give my motivation. They could choose some statistical or educational motivations which were pre-written, let's say, but they could also write a free text. So all of this data capturing and input is not a typical BI. Usually BI, we gather data from all other systems and we show what we have. But this time we also needed to capture a lot of data and input from the users. So those were very non-typical BI challenges for us. And there was also a very, very high load on the system at peak moments, because it was at those days, everybody needed to do everything at the same moment. And the solution we really implemented for that is that we do have a site license for our BI software. So usually we have enough licenses for everybody, but we limited the number of licenses to 200 because we did some load testing on the system. And we saw that at the moment that 200 concurrent users were trying to upload their numbers, that the system was really struggling. So we limited the number of licenses to 200 to make sure that only 200 users at the same time could log in. And then they saw, oh, I have to wait and I come back in half an hour or an hour. So that was a solution for that. Now I wanted to show you our tool. It's all in Flemish, but I will try to talk you through the tool. And I also did some blurring because I did not want to show names of the professors and the name of the courses to make sure that they don't, well, you don't see the real results. So like I said, there's a part for the lecturers. This is the left part. Lesgever is lecturer. And then the examencommissie, that's the examination board. In the part of the lecture, so when I talked about communication and instructions, this is where all this text and these graphics come in, that they could see, okay, what do I need to do? Stappenplan is all of the steps that I will need to do. We tried to make it as visible as possible in the tool, everything they needed to do. So at the moment that they needed to check their exam marks, this is what I told about the workflows a little bit. It's step by step. We guided them through the system. In the first step, they selected their course. I can select all of the courses, but actually each professor could only choose their own courses. There was an authorization level that they could only see and modify their own courses. What I'm looking at is a production system where everything has already been checked. But when you start, the lower part was not shown. You could only see, I check my course, I choose my course, and then I see for each year the name of the lecturer that you could see, which I blurred now, if it had changed, when it had changed during history. So it is information to understand maybe differences in distribution. Number of students that are doing the exams. Then you could upload the numbers, that was step 2, but because this course has already been done and there is a result, I can immediately look at the numbers that were loaded. So what we see here is that actually we expected 125 students results, and after the upload, there were 114. So then the lecturer could check, okay, is this normal? This is all the numbers that I have. Yes, because there's 11 that were not here and one of them was ill. So he could check that the Excel file that he loaded, is that really the numbers that I gave? And we give some statistics already, again, with a lot of text telling them, this is the step where you are. You need to read this. This is what you have to decide. Where do you have to look at? What is the decision making you have to do? Once all of the grades were loaded in the system, we showed them previous years, not the current year, but previous years. How was the distribution of your numbers? A histogram of this distribution, a box plot with minimum, maximum, and threshold, and then some extra numbers already written next to it. That was just informational to see, is my distribution over the years? Can I look at it myself and see if this was stationary, yes or no? Also, we had this yellow ribbon. If you click on it, there's some more information for them to remind them, how do I look at the screen? In the next step, we did a simulation. We said, if we would have done the formula that we want to adapt this year, if we would have done that in the previous years, namely the year before, or even before those years, if we would have looked at historical distribution then and would have tried to compensate, would it have changed something? Because the simulation of the past already gives you an indication of the stationarity of your numbers. Because if you would have adapted in the last years, that means that your distribution is not very stable and that you have to think, is it really interesting of doing the adaptation this year? So you could see actually for last year, or you choose on the bottom another year, you could see these are the original numbers, the examination marks that the lecturer gave. And you could see this is what the tool would show you as an adaptation. And then you see actually a grade of 3 stays 3, and it only would have changed an 18 into a 19 and a 19 into a 20, which makes that 0 students would get a credit on top of, I mean, an extra, the adaptation would result in plus 0 students getting a credit. It's none of them get an extra credit. And we do have 2 students which would get an extra point. So you could see that for all of the years in the past. And then the next step is, this is the adaptation for this year, because this is your examination marks that you gave. And this is what the system would do as an adaptation. And here you see that actually most of the numbers this year would have been adapted with the formula. You see every blue number is, you're getting something else. 11 students would get a credit where originally they would not get a credit for your course. And 112 students get an extra point and 2 students get 2 extra points actually. And at this moment, the lecturer had to decide, okay, do I want this? Yes or no? And in the next step, he had to say, okay, my numbers, this is the system saying, yes, your numbers, there is an adaptation. If there would not have been an adaptation, this would have been grayed out and it would say there is no adaptation. And he can either tick statistical or educational arguments to say, I don't agree, or he says, I agree. And he can write extra motivation and then final decides, I keep the original scores or I take the adaptation. And then in the end, I will not do it again because it's in a productive system. If he chose for adaptation, he could go to step 8 to see, okay, give me the download of my adapted exam results so I can charge them into the operational system. But now I go back to step 1, because if I came back as a lecturer to see what did I do, and maybe I can still change my mind, I see here that actually I uploaded my numbers, my marks at that time. I decided to keep the original numbers, and these were the reasons why I kept them. Statistically, the lecturer decided that historically it was not very stationary when looking at those distributions, and the lecturer had also changed during the history. So there was enough reason to say, no, I keep my original scores. Okay, so this is the part of the lecturer. Second part is the examination boards. There were a lot of reports, but the most important one that I want to show you is they could look at the complete set. I will get another, because this is not not enough. Oh. Students, but like for instance, this program, they could choose their program, deliberation set. Every examination board also only saw their own numbers. And then they looked, okay, is in a whole over all of the course units, what is the results of the student? Is it similar to last year? Actually, you could see here in this program that they were scoring better than previous years. But if it was going worse, if results are going down, they could then go to an overview of all of the courses which are in this deliberation set or in this program, and actually see, okay, this is the list of courses. I blurred the name of the courses. And you could see that the ones here in the blue box is the result of the Corona check. Lines where you don't see anything, that means that a check was not performed. The lines where you do something, see something, where it says gelijke cijfers, the tool said, actually your distribution is similar to the previous years. And if it said original or aangepast, that meant there was a difference, but you chose to keep the original numbers. And if it said aangepast, the lecturer chose to do the adaptation. So that was how the examination board could see if students were not doing as well as previous years, they could check here. Did we already check per course how distribution was changed during the history, during this year compared to history? And did the lecturers already adapt a lot of numbers or not? And then if they looked, okay, this one, he chose to keep the original numbers, they could go and see the details. What is their motivation? So you saw here, he did not take any statistical or educational motivations, but he did give comments for the examination board to explain why he did not accept the adaptation. And the examination board also could look at the box plots to see the historical distribution of this course. So that was the tool in a nutshell that we built. Then I want to go back to the presentation and tell you the results of this tool, what it did actually. When we look at the lecturers and the courses, I will not give a lot of details on what it did, but you could see that almost 90% of the lecturers used the tool to check if there was an adaptation needed or no. A small number of courses, only 5%, the adaptation was accepted. A lot of them because it was not needed. We could see that students were actually doing very well, but it was some students were doing very well. I mean, for some courses, there was no impact at all. For some courses, there was a big impact. So only a limited number of courses where the scores were adapted. But with this adaptation, more than 50% of all the students were impacted. So it was in a small number of courses, but with a lot of students where there was a lot of impact that they did get extra grades. And then on the part of the examination boards, it was actually done with a survey that we got 35% response of all of the examination boards, where we asked, did you adapt your policy for deliberation and grades of merit, yes or no? And you could see that actually about a little bit more than half of the examination boards did change their policy, either on faculty level or on program level. And they did it because the impact was visible. It could be positive or negative. They said, oh, yes, now I can see that students are doing better. We will certainly not do some exceptional cases because they are already doing very well, or the other way. And mostly they did it because it was now possible to do meaningful deliberation, because they had so much insight in the data, which they did not have before. And there were also reasons not to do it, to avoid double corrections, or there was no impacts, or the student populations were so small that you could not really rely on the statistics to decide something. And the main conclusions were that for them, it was a big, big upgrade of this deliberation process, because now it was a very meaningful, they could decide based on numbers. There were not many cases where extra deliberations were needed, but they said that the insight that was provided by the tool was very useful, and they wanted to have the same insights in future exam periods. So there was a sequel, because they were so happy with all of these insights. We decided to transform what we called the Corona Check tool into an evaluation reflection tool. So that was the new tool to have those insights incorporated in our processes. And some considerations which are very important was that a Corona Check as such, we did not want to repeat it for 2 reasons or 3 reasons. The check and the one-time adaptation that we proposed was because of an acute crisis. It is not something that you want to repeat. It was for an acute crisis that you wanted to do a one-time adaptations. And the crisis was because teachers hadn't been able to adapt rapidly enough to the new situation, and also students could not adapt rapidly enough to those new situations. But for the future, the idea is we really want to avoid grading on the curve. Yes, we don't want lecturers every year to check, oh, is my distribution the same? No, I want to adapt, because that's when you get grading on the curve. No, but so we didn't want lecturers to do that. And also they thought that with the beginning of the new academic year, they hoped that teachers and students would be adapted to the new situation by now. But we needed still those insights of the data for the deliberation process, because there it is still very, very meaningful that every deliberation now is a meaningful process, and a continuous check in a quality assurance processes for the lecturers, but not at the moment that they finalize their grades, but afterwards. So examination, the lecturers, the new tool, they will not see their grades before all the grades are finalized and they are given to the students. But afterwards, they get the same insights so that they can check, oh, why is my distribution, has it changed? Did I change the way that I teach? Did I change the way that I do my exams? Do I have to do something because something is happening? It's a quality thing, a reflection that you want to do, and you don't want them to intervene on their marks again. And the program and evaluation committees, which are reflecting on all of the programs, there was a bit of a deadline in the January exams, because we hoped that students and lecturers had adapted to the new situation, but they still wanted to be able to check after the January exam period, do we see negative impacts still now on the whole set, and is remediation maybe necessary in the second semester? So if I still have time, I can also give a demo of the new reflection tool, but it is just an adaptation of the Corona Check tool. And I think that the important message that I still want to give, some conclusions of this story, let's say, is that, first of all, I want to say that it was a very, very great team effort. It was either my BI team, they did tremendous good work. Everybody was very motivated. We all had adrenaline going through our bodies for work, and we are really doing something. So that was very good. It was a very good teamwork, but also because we had a very good cooperation with the business. We had 2 professors, one in statistics, one in educational subjects, who had decision authority, and with also the support of education and communication departments, and also some test users, with really feedback loops that were direct, almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that continuously, every time that we had a question during analysis, oh, is it, you want this or that? Everybody was available to decide immediately, we go into that direction or not. And that was the only way that we could give, get a success in this project. Otherwise, we could not have done it in 3 weeks, which made it that afterwards, we needed to do some expectation management for all of the IT projects, BI and non-BI, because then the university said like, oh, this is great. Now why suddenly everybody is so flexible? You should do this always. Do projects in 3 weeks. But this was really a very exceptional case because we could work together and business could decide so quickly on what they needed and what they wanted. But in the end, there was a lot of positive feedback, not only on the tool itself, but I think that we also had the opportunities of the BI system were made clear. And that's why it resulted in a sequel. And I think that we could say that we really did a shift in BI maturity at the university because of this project. So I will leave it up to you, because maybe you want more time for questions, or one of the questions could be give a demo of the sequel tool.
Bene, we have several questions here already, so let's take these questions first, since they are regarding what you have already presented, and then we can move forward and see what we have time to do. So there's one question here. I must just say, it was so much fun to listen to you, Bene, and also to listen to what you've actually gone through during these times in your BI team. And that you managed to do this in 3 weeks, I'm just really, really impressed. That's just really impressive. So we have one question here. Is Seam is sharing, saying we use a traffic light model to show detected bias or other abnormalities in grading. Did you also consider using that?
We did consider using it, but that was one of the actually. Business decided not to give too much interpretation of the numbers by the system. It was really up to lecturers and examination boards themselves to see if something was good or bad, because a difference in distribution is not always good or bad. It's not because numbers are going down that is bad and that you have to adapt your marks. They were afraid that giving traffic lights would already give the intention to the lecturer that you have to do it. They really wanted to, and in the sequel, we still have, we did some more indicators saying something has changed here, but only saying it's going up or down, but not with traffic lights red and green. We don't want to give any annotation of good or bad. You can see it's going up or down, but it's all in the same color to make sure you have to decide for yourself, is going up, down, is it good or is it bad? Because sometimes going down is also good. So.
Yeah, interesting. There's another question here. Did you account for differences in general student abilities between different cohorts in different years?
That was afterwards. Analysis are done, and that's in the, let's say, in the quality assurance system. We do reporting on how students, the student results are in differences in different groups, but not at the time of the corona check itself.
Okay, there's also a question that's a little bit about the same, and that is, did you account for difference in student groups between years and for different parameters? For example, in Norway, we actually also look at the gender aspect. Could you see some results there?
Well, not in the corona check itself. It was really, the students are all seen as one group. We did not look at that. But again, in the quality assurance system, we do have other reports where it's possible to do a cross with all kind of students, dimensions, let's say.
Here we also have a more of an explorative question. The analytics, did you use AI on grades only? Can also AI be used on the actual texts that students hand in?
Oh, we did not look at that at all.
Let's have a new workshop on that.
Yes.
That's a great idea for a new workshop. But did you discuss these things during the 3 weeks that you worked?
No, there was no time at all to discuss any of that.
Okay, another question here we have. Did you consider the ethics about changing the student's grade, since the grade reflects a learning outcome? A changed grade can therefore reflect a higher learning outcome than the reality.
Yes, I think I was not involved too much in those discussions. That was, let's say, the education department, the professors, and they thought a lot about it. The board, before deciding doing it, they had a lot of discussions. And but in the 3 weeks that we worked on it, I tried to work on what they decided they needed to do, and then we did it. But I think they did a lot of reflection on that as well.
How big must the population be in order to do that?
Oh, we have in total, we have around 45,000 students every year. So you do have a lot. We have some courses where you have 1,000 students in one course.
Here comes a comment from Estonia. It's interesting to hear that Norway has gender bias. Our analysis from the University of Tartu in Estonia did not show such difference. Instead, females' grades tended to be more on the extremes, both low and high, but the pass rate and mean and median were very similar. So that's an interesting comment.
Yeah, we see that female students do get higher results.
But not also on the lower, like in Estonia.
I don't think so. Maybe, but in the mean and the median are higher.
And here we also have a great comment from EUNIS 21 Congress, who is Jill Farrell. Hello, Jill. She says that there's a great technology, ACJ, adaptive comparative judgment, that shows amazing results towards AI marking of complex texts. So that is something to look into in the future. And she says that ACJ is definitely a topic for another event, though. Absolutely. So here we have a future, great ideas for future events. Okay, Bene, that was a very interesting talk. Thank you very much. We're going to move forward in the program. And as it is 5 minutes past 10, and we're going to be together for a few more hours, I think that we should just have a short break right now so that we can all rest our ears a little bit for the ones of us who are wearing these earplugs. So we will be back here at 10 past 10 in 5 minutes. 5 minutes short break for technical stuff and other. So see you in 5 minutes. Welcome back after our short break. And we're going to start with our second inspirational talk today. And today we have Anette Ysland Ludvigsen and Ivar Pettersen. They are both from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology in Norway. And they are both a part of the Department of Government and Management Science and are both analysts working with educational data. And they are going to present to us today their model that they have been developing to use on the basis of decision making in the future at their university. So welcome, Anette and Ivar.
Thank you. And first, I just want to say, Bene, it was very interesting to hear about how we do it in Ghent. So now I'm just going to share our presentation. So we are going to speak about predicting student churn in a time of the pandemic and modeling predictive models in a new educational setting. We have already been introduced, so I don't think we will take up so much time about that. So we're just going to start. So how can we predict the future in a shifting time? Because the time are shifting. We are going to speak about the challenges in methodology for predictive models based on historic data in a shifting time, and how to use user input to increase the quality in predictive models. NTNU is a quite large university. We have over 40,000 students. We have almost 400 different study programs at 3 different locations. And the shifting times, if it's a pandemic or other shifting times, it will affect each study program, each subject, and the different students group different. So how can we use user inputs to increase the quality? And when I say user input, I'm talking about planners that works at every department. For instance, student advisors that is very familiar with each study programs and their different challenges. They work closely with the study program leaders and the department heads. So when we say users, we are talking about planners that work closely with each study program. So Ivar, you can start.
Okay, then perhaps I will take the screen.
Sure.
Does this look correct to you?
We're not seeing
Don't
any
see anything.
slides yet, Ivar. But while Ivar is going to share, I would just like to remind everybody that we love questions and we have set off enough time to have questions. So please use the chat function to share questions or inputs like we had during the first talk. Then we had also people sharing their own experiences. So please feel free to do the same now for also this presentation. So you're welcome, Ivar.
Okay, now you see it. Excellent. Okay. I'm going to talk about what we have previously done at this university, and I will give you 4 examples of the analysis of different outcomes. Really, it's mostly about dropout rates here, but it could just as well be about graduates or grades or credits. So in the first one, we asked the question: what characterizes the students who actually drop out? And you can imagine a wide set of factors. Unfortunately, we can only use the data we have in our administrative systems. Due to these GDPR restrictions, we think we cannot use the information in these learning management systems that we have, at least not without the consent of students. Though we know that others have tried to get access to this data, but they have failed. So second point, calculated conditional dropout rates. As a student characteristics is not all. In most research on school education in general, perhaps the most important input, the teacher or lecturers are not part of this equation. And kind of why is that? Well, it's very hard to measure the quality of the actual teaching. You can separate between lecture and type of education, but can you really distinguish between the person and the method? I don't know, but it's still, we think it's when we will sometimes evaluate these this study program intervention, and therefore we need a framework to do that. Courses that make it or break it. This is a very simple way to make forecasts, because some hurdles are much harder than others. And I will show an example of one course at this university that we have kind of used as a way to forecast failures or dropout rates or graduate rates. The last point I will make is about the importance of the world around us, especially about the labor market. So first, here we have a set of regressions. And this is what I call a causal model. We have a set of independent explanatory variables to predict the probability of dropout rates. As I said, it could just as well have been graduate rates or grades. So all these characteristics we see there, we call them exogenous. They are kind of determined outside of the model, and we cannot we cannot easily affect these. We can't just pick the students we want. We have some admission criteria which are supposed to be fair and objective. But of course, some could say that, well, through some careful recruitment campaigns, we can actually try to get people we want. We see there are several samples in this table. I'm sorry that the headers are in Norwegian, but I'm just thinking that, well, all these factors may not affect all types of students the same way. So we have one column for civil engineers, two for teachers, some for bachelor engineers, social sciences, humanities, and for nurses. So in these models, we see we look at gender differences. The grade average is the high school grades, the average. And I'm sure that high school means the same all over the world. So that is in Norway, that's the 3 years we study after the mandatory 10 years of schooling. And students qualify for higher education through the high schools. So again, we control for age, gender. Priority means that what the applicants rate the programs from 1 to 10. This strange variable trønder means that the student is from the county of Trøndelag, where the main campus in Trondheim lies. For some reason, these are the worst students we can get because for some reason. So based on these estimates, we can make some predictions, at least on the margin. If you admit better students, they have a higher grade average from high school, the dropouts rate decreases. We also see that women have a higher probability of dropping out from civil engineering programs, but a lower probability of dropping out in almost all other programs. So we sometimes we say, well, the perfect student for us is a female young student with a nice diploma from high school who isn't from Trøndelag. So based on, say you have a new cohort, you can say, look at the characteristics of that cohort, said, well, this and this and this factor will kind of contribute to less dropout. This and this perhaps will increase our dropout rates. Okay, so based on, we know that the individual characteristics matter, we can calculate what we call a conditional dropout rate. So why I'm showing this? Well, sometimes a program leader, a department faculty make some interventions. And when we try to evaluate these interventions, we need to make sure that we just don't capture differences in the student body. So you see here is there are four different faculties. And the first one, and the light blue, shows what I call uncorrected dropout rate. It's the deviation from the mean of all these technology programs. So you see the uncorrected one, and then you see the dark blue. This has been corrected for these individual characteristics. So they say, well, the reason why this faculty has higher dropout rates is because the students have higher probability of dropping out. The next faculty, IVT, shows that, well, they're below average in dropout rates, but they should really be even lower because their students are less prone to drop out. So this is kind of like a framework for evaluating the program interventions, because we have washed away what we can explain on the individual level. We have made several. We have some interventions. We have what is called the ADA program, which is a program that tries to recruit more women into these technology programs. They also try to keep them in the program. So they're following up these female students and we see some amazing results. We keep them in the programs, the share of females increase in the programs, and actually the dropout rates for men decrease. And it makes sense to me, but because I would rather be in a more balanced, general, equal environment. But still, that was a very interesting result. And then, well, to kind of isolate the effect of this other program intervention, we needed to kind of iron away all the other effects. Same time, we have also something that is called the technology ladder, because these students, they wander around the first 2 years, they all learn the tools of the trade, the mathematics, the physics, the mechanics. They're kind of alienated to what they're supposed to be engineers. So in some programs, they have actually, well, let's teach them some robotics course the first year to really let them know what they'll be dealing with later in the study, so they don't drop out because they're sick and tired of mathematics. Okay. So some courses, of course, are harder to pass than others. For these technology students, this mathematics 1 is one of the harder ones. So it's mandatory, and in some years we see fail rates up to 30%. So in this figure, you see the grade distributions from F is the lowest, that's a fail below. And you see the student status. So in hindsight, we know whether they dropped out or not, and or graduated or is still active. I will see, okay, how did they perform in this course the first time they took it? So you see, to the right, you have this, what I have labeled dropout involuntary. You see that 60% of these dropouts actually failed this course the first time. So based on the results of this particular course, we can make some predictions. But the problem is, so what happens when you present such results? There are some people responsible for this subject. So of course they changed it. They put in more resources. They had perhaps they changed the teaching methods. Perhaps they changed the evaluation. Perhaps they changed the exam. Perhaps the exam was, well, perhaps easier. So the intervention actually breaks the predictive power of this very simplistic model. So we're kind of back to square one again. So I remember I once attended a course by David Henry at Oxford and LSE. He's one of the real pioneers behind forecasting, and he said, well, not a direct quote, but I said, if your results are acted upon, your forecast model will fail in the future. So, or at least require some kind of maintenance. So the point is, forecasting is not a one-off sprint, it's more like a marathon. Okay, the last one, this is not my proudest moment. The fall in the oil price led to a reduction in the applicants for all these petroleum technology-based programs. So the faculty staff was curious about the effects on dropout rates. So I looked into it, but I was way too narrow-minded. So I had previously run this regression that showed that some groups were more at risk at dropping out than others. So in this, you look at this regression, you see that I have controlled for the high school average grade. So, and you see, there's a reference group here. They have, say, 35 to 40 points. And that's the reference. You see that all the other groups, 40, 45, 50, and 55, they have a significantly higher probability of graduating. So this is the probability of graduating. So, okay, and so I looked at this student body and said, well, no, these group 35 students, they're at risk of dropping out. You don't have any of these students. And stupid advice. So the truth is, about 80% of this cohort dropped out of the program. They did not drop out of the university, but they transferred to other programs. So I really failed miserably in taking into account the context, the real world, the labor market, all those things. So this is not something to replicate. So what have we learned? Well, we do kind of look at all these characteristics, as I have said before, that we can't really change them, but at least in Norway there has been some kind of discussion about changing the admission system, because we give way too many points for so-called age points. For say you can have up to 8 points, almost increase your grade average with 1 grade, and that's perhaps too much. The second point, well, it can be convenient to blame the students, but well, we provided some kind of framework for intervention analysis. Again, the curse of a successful prediction will probably change things. And the last point here, the bottom right, you can actually see the oil price. We should be aware of international and national trends, especially labor market trends. And we are talking about the effects of the pandemic, but what about the shift from fossil fuels towards renewable energy? And of course, man-made climate change is controversial, but I think the future student will be more interested in sustainability, perhaps. Okay, so well, the first approach I've shown the panel data approach. We can make some kind of assumptions about how the changes in student body will affect the graduation rate and dropout rates. The next approach we tried is the so-called ARIMA, the autoregressive integrated moving average, which is a kind of classical way of modeling time series. So it's technically it could give us kind of unlimited forecast to the future. We did kind of like something, took a little bit from both, and we fitted an ARIMA model with some exogenous variables, some of the variables we had from this panel regressions. So the problem when you do this, you don't just have to model the original ARIMA equation. You also have to make assumptions about future values of these exogenous or these explanatory variables. So so that and the process of one such equation is, well, this is a bit technical, but I don't think I'll explain this, but you have these steps: check for stationarity, find the correct specification. You need to look for some kind of structural breaks, and also look at the forecast both in sample and out of sample. And we try to do this on the course level, and we teach about 5,000 courses a year, and ended up with having to model the main ARIMA equation and all the other variables. We had to run about 30,000 regressions, and not to mention that, well, some of these courses had 20 years of data. That would probably be fine. And some courses have just 1 year, that would fail. There is a non-linear way to solve these equations, and some estimations will not converge. So this will take years and years and years. So we don't know how they would perform either way. So that's why this is called the process and why we abandoned it. So about these pandemic effects, I've tried to divide our thoughts into the short, medium, and long term. I think that we see that the changes we have seen changes in grading. We usually use this A to F scale now. A lot of courses went, at least in the fall of 2020, the use of pass-fail increased a lot. It has gone back a bit now to this A to F, but we see, well, the students are more likely to pass using pass-fail. They're less likely to put in the extra effort to kind of go for this A grade. Home exams, well, I'm sure that's convenient, but I think that we didn't really have the time to adapt these exams to this home environment. I think perhaps we have now, but in the first semesters, I don't think we had the time to do it. So, but what we experience also, we have more students because of course the labor market, there's a problem there. We have better students, so kind of the marginal student, the worst student we admit in a certain program is better than before. We attract some older students because they have no work. That's not what we want, because we see that these older students, they have a larger probability of dropping out. In a kind of medium term, we think that, well, have this distance teaching, this online teaching, perhaps it is not as good as campus teaching. So in the future, we may see that they have learned less, and that will affect them later in this student career. Long term, we have seen some great advances in technology. We can have reach new groups of students that don't have to be on campus all the time, and that perhaps this is, I think, both a supply and demand situation. That, well, the students will say, well, why can't you just give us this course off campus? And the university will think, well, we can reach new students elsewhere because of this new technology. And perhaps we also see a shift in labor demand. I think that this pandemic has shown us that we have a lack of specialized nurses. We have these intensive care nurses that have been in Norway, been moved around from the hospital to hospital. So there will be some changes there. And at the same time, also you see these essential workers, they gain a lot of respect. Perhaps the young today will want to be a nurse, a teacher. Time will tell. Okay, but that was my part of this lecture.
Good, and thank you, Ivar. And while Annette is getting ready to share her presentation, I will just remind you that you can just put your questions in the chat field, and I will take up the questions from your chat when you post them. So, Annette.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about what our latest model is. It's a planning tool which includes a predictive model. And we have called it Bevisst Plan Education, and Bevisst is the Norwegian. It stands for Better Governance Management. And this planning tool predicts the future student credits, future completed degrees, and future exchange students. And the reason for these three indicators is that this is how we receive our income from. So in the right corner, you can see a picture of our web application, because this is a web page, web application that is the users can log in.
Annette, when you give this context introduction, could you also answer this question? What do you do at NTNU with these statistics in the organization?
This is a part of our budget process, since this gives us the income in the future, and therefore we have to know what is our income, so we know how can we plan our resources in the future. So this is based on that process, and that process is in every department, every faculty, and at the central level. So it's many users that is involved. And the Bevisst-plan education is just one part of the budget process. So Bevisst-plan is much larger than just this. The model is based on historic data that predicts the future student credits, exchange students, and completed degrees. And we start with a study program, and just for an example, study program X, and we do this for every study program at the university. And for this example, we have a program that has an admission for 100 students. And by history, we know that of those 100 students, we know that they takes, for instance, subject A, B, C, and D. And we know that subject A, 90 passes, subject B, 50 passes, subject C, 80 passes, and so on. And this is based on historic data. We know as well that of those 100 students, 40 students go abroad. And of those 100 students, 70 students will complete their degrees. And how many takes which course is different for each and every study program. And in this analysis, it's a predictive. So it's based on history, and we just say, okay, based on the historic, so will the future be. The users can, however, change the admission. If one study program will change the admission from, for instance, 100 to 200 students, just to say a number, the analysis will so on says that, okay, it's not 70 students that will complete the degrees, it's 140. So it's a predictive analysis, but it can be some user input in admission. But we have change, and we have to calculate how can we manage change in this predictive model. Because how I explained it just now in the last slide, it was a big assumption there, past equals future. But is that true necessary? And often, especially now in the pandemic, it's not true. So how can we make the predictive model to include some change? So how can, in other words, how can we consider the delta, the change? For we have many, it's a shifting time. We can have pandemic, change in the demand for labor. For instance, that what Ivar was telling you about, how the oil price changed, how demand for, or the interest for the petroleum study program. And will that as well change the interest for renewable energy study program? Do we have new student groups? Ivar was as well telling you about that more students is interesting in higher education than before, because the difficulties in the labor markets right now. And do the different study programs do any measures to increase the learning environment? And will that as well increase the outcome? And therefore, we use user input to increase the quality in the prediction model. Because the users here is the planners that works close to the study programs. Then now, are they going to make some measures, for instance? So we use user input because they have more likely to have knowledge about future plans, future measures, and how external effects may affect the specific program. Because this is something we can't not necessarily use historic data to say something about. Because this can be measures that we have never done before. It can be plans that we have never done before. And the external effects, as Ivar was telling you about, we have to calculate for this. So therefore, we say that the planners that works close with the study program, they have the most likely to have knowledge about this, and therefore they have to be included in the modeling and the analytics. So our predictive model is based on two things. One is the predictive model based on historic data that says that the history will create the future. But we have user input that can change, overwritten our analytics. So the predictive model is the sum of those two. So now I was planning to show you how it looks like. So I'm just going to share in a different way. Is this too small, or do you see this okay? Yeah, nodding, that's good. So this is our first, the web page, the web application. And this is all in Norwegian. I'm sorry, I will try to translate. And our analytics is in this one, estimere gjennomføring in Norwegian. And here, this is in one department, and this is different study programs. In this box, each planner can say something about admission ahead. The admission here, the numbers here is, for instance, in this subject, study program, has 100 student admission in bachelor in movement science. And of those 100, they usually takes these subjects. And this is the student credits. But if they change the admission ahead, it will also affect the student credits. And this is how many will go abroad for this same program. For instance, of those 100, we know that if the history is the same, 7 will go plus 3 in Erasmus+, so 10 at some. And this study program doesn't have any exchange student that comes to NTNU. So we can change this and say that from 2023 we will have another admission code. We don't have 100, we will say 200, just to say something. And then we will see that those the student credits will change as well. So 100 changed here. So we can see that in, for instance, here you can see a hop from 1025 to 2013. So if you change the admission, most likely will the student credit change in this way. And in the background, we will have this divided in which year will the shift do. This is a first class subject, and therefore it will happen already in 2023. But some subject that is maybe here, for instance, this subject will happen 3 years later, because it's a subject they will take later in their program. And as well will the change do in exchange student here. They travel out in the third year, and therefore it will happen in 2025. So this is the first one, the historic-based model. And then we say, okay, users, you planners, you know it better. How will you adjust this? And that you will see here. Justering av studiepoeng, adjustments for student credits. And here they can say, okay, at the first one, this is about, have you done any measures that will change the failing for one, for the class, each subject? Have you done any measures that say something about the number of students? and this is, have we created some new subjects? How do you think a number of students, how do you think how many will pass this here as well? So for instance, here we can, for instance, this subject, they can say, okay, we have 10% failing rate, and how will that affect overall? So here is the user input, and they can overwrite everything. So here in estimations, you can say how it's all can go in the same department. And normal road is in English, it says something. The historic data says this. This is changes they have done in number of students, for instance, and other changes. This is new subject they have created. This is new subject they have said that we don't do this anymore, because they can as well say that this subject, we don't teach this anymore. And this is adjustments measures they're taking out how the fail rates. So the total student credits will be the sum of those, the sum of the historic and the user input. And we do this for student credits, how many that is graduating and exchange students. So every 3 of those indicators. So that was, I will just show the student credit due to the time limit, but we as well, the same type of thing we do to candidates and exchange students. So now we have set some time for questions. So I really hope you have some questions, so please ask.
Annette, maybe you should just keep the presentation up for the questions. Sure. We have one question here that is, do the data include prediction for graduate students, meaning further education and lifelong learners like EVU in Norway? If you could just elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah,
please. Thank you.
It includes every study program that we have used our funding of. We don't use this for courses that the student pay everything for. So we have a deviation there for economic activity that we don't include here, and a non-economic activity that we do include. So we have, I didn't show you, but we have here divided by study point that we found and study point that it's funded partly from external. So we do include those as well.
Could you just show how a prediction model would work for the externally funded study programs?
Mm-hmm. I just say, I just want the external funded. I'm of this department, and here is the historic base. It's not so large for this apartment, and we haven't done any user input, so those rows is blank for this instance.
There is another general question. Have NTNU considered educating the lecturers how to motivate students in the online learning environment based on the results showed by Ivar's predictive models during the pandemics? So the question is NTNU actually using the insight that we get from our statistics into actionable decision-making regarding motivations of students? Maybe both you and Ivar could comment on that.
Yeah, Ivar, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can make one comment. I mentioned this ADA program, which tried to recruit female students into technology programs, and we did some work on that. And as I mentioned, there were some interesting effects there. And this analysis is actually being published soon. And of course, NTNU uses this information because, well, the people who ran the ADA program, they didn't know if it worked or not. Now they got the hard facts on the table, so now it's being expanded. So we have several examples that show that this work actually has an impact. I think that on the subject of online learning environment, I don't think we know enough, but I think we will gather some more information in the years to come.
Absolutely.
Anette, would you like to comment also a little bit about the usage of this model that you have presented now, because this is rather new.
Yeah, this is very new. We haven't. We have just had a pilot, so we haven't said that everyone can use it. So this is in pilot. We have just finished up, and we have got very good results. So we will make this available for everyone in the next year.
Thank you. We also have a comment here that it's good to hear how Antonio is using these statistics, and also we have somebody saying that we have insights from Open edX and FutureLearn, online micro-credentials, and MOOCs. So a lot of data is available in order to make these types of statistical analytics also. So there are a lot of possibilities out there for the ones who are keen on getting insights from educational data, also for the ones of graduate students and lifelong learning programs. We are still have some time for some more questions if you are interested.
Maybe a question from my side. I mean, this is quite impressive. The results, I think, especially if you include data from outside and you can start getting results that can be validated against the reality. I think all of that is probably going to make this even more useful. But I was wondering, because the end user interface and the underlying model and the way we are looking at the numbers here, it's not very easy to use. So I was wondering, how are you planning to educate your end users, the academics, to use this tool? And do you have any plans to perhaps simplify it somehow, or make it more accessible to some other people, whereas the enthusiasts, of course, will be able to go into the detail as well?
Yeah, this we have talked about that. How should we educate them so they can really access this system? And we, in the other models we have made already in the Bevisplan umbrella, we have had courses, many courses in different ways. So we are planning to have one or several courses about just what to push, how to use it digital, and some courses about the model itself, how it's based, and as well as how to use this as a tool in the decision-making process, how to use these statistics to make better decisions. So I think we have to have several courses that has some deviations on how the focus is.
Have you considered using two types of end user interfaces? One for the people who are just interested in results but don't want to understand what's behind, and then another one for the more advanced users.
Yeah, we have one. I didn't show you. We have in English. It will be baseline for decision making, maybe the best English term, and this is just the outcome, and you can just see how it will be as a result. So this is more focused on the user that is more like a decision maker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. Thank you.
What I can just also add, since I'm from the same university as Annette and I work with this as well together with Annette, I could just comment that in the pilot we divided users by if they are people who are working in finance and people who are working in evaluating the quality of programs and what kind of changes one would like to make within these programs according to the insights that they're getting. And these two user groups are very, very different in what they would like. And we even looked at some prototypes of power apps. We thought maybe that would be something that would be nice for decision makers. However, what we really learned from, in particular, the educational decision makers, they want to know the model in detail. They want to see how we actually come up with this, this result. So they are not satisfied with only seeing the result. They want to see all the details, and they want to be very secure and sure that they know the basis of the result. So we thought that maybe we could move into two different directions for the different user groups, but it actually has some challenges due to it, because the educational decision makers, they really want to have access to all these details. However, since this is just a pilot, it's not finished either with all information texts. So what you have seen today is also not finished, since it's lacking a bit of information texts. But even though this is something that we have to look more into the future, how can we make things more feasible and easy for decision makers to use? But I think we need really some time to have our decision makers have trust in the models that are behind it, because they are really very detail oriented in their usage of these types of systems. So that's interesting. We also have a comment here from a teacher's perspective that the courses with few students in niche courses are running the risk of disappearing. Thoughts about that?
I think that I think at the NTNU, I think everyone sees the values about the niche courses, and I think it's to know better about how the student study program and subject portfolio impacts our economy. We as well can create space in our budget to have those niche courses. It's something about how can I do measures and how will that impact, and by that I will make the decision to have those niche courses, because that is so important for my department, for instance the teaching or the research or however. So this is not something of, it's to give access for information.
Good. Well, thank you, Annette and Eva, for a very interesting presentation. Of course, I'm biased here saying that, but I think that now we have some time for a mini break. And during this mini break, I would like you to use the mini break to get your browser up, and also to, we are now going to move from Zoom to EUNIS Island. But before we do that, and before we do the little mini break, I will just share some things with you how we are now going to move to EUNIS Island, because that means we're going to jump ship from the Zoom, and we're going here. This is the EUNIS Island that has been made for the whole conference of EUNIS. This is the whole island. And we are going to meet in the restaurant that you can see all the way on the up there, with a lot of tables with the white and red and blue tablecloths. And when we come to the conference, you can see also all these places where our sponsors are going to be placed. So when you join for the conference, you can have a nice walk around here and meet all our wonderful sponsors and get to know them better, and also to be able to talk to them and also see presentations that they have there in between all these Greek columns. So EUNIS Island is really a place to go during the conference. And this is also a place to network with other people. Okay. So for the roundtable discussions, we're going to meet in the EUNIS Island. I'll come back to this picture again. And this is where you can see that we're going to meet at different tables to discuss the different topics. I'll get back to this slide again. I'm just going to show you. This is the link. And this link I am going to post in the chat field to you. And that link is the one that you are going to use the short break for 5 minutes to move to the restaurant, to come over there. So what you do is that you start taking this link, put it into your browser, then you're going to get into a picture that says, a site that says you need to set up an avatar. You do that, then you enter the EUNIS restaurant at the EUNIS island, and there you find your roundtable group, and you go to that roundtable group. You keep your camera on, you stay unmuted. We are going to talk and we're going to meet, and then you can find your table where you need to sit for the roundtable discussion. So now note these roundtable discussions. Where would you like to go? As you can see, we have one roundtable discussion that's how did COVID-19 impact your BI team? Bene is going to host that one. Then we have doing predictive analytics. Annette is going to be hosting that one in the yellow tables. And then we have Elsa Cardoso, who is going to host the roundtable on storytelling as a method in data warehouse modeling. And then I am going to be sitting here over at the blue tablecloth tables, and where we're going to talk about setting up a BI team in your institution. So now, let's go back. This is what you do. So during the 5-minute break, in 5 minutes, we will all gather at the EUNIS restaurant for the roundtable discussions. And 11:09, that's in 5 minutes, 11:09, we will start our roundtable discussions there. So now I'm going to share this link with you in the chat field here in Zoom. Then you copy that, and then we jump ship directly to EUNIS restaurant.
Thank you for such excellent instructions, Greek. Can I just add one point? Can you make sure you leave this Zoom meeting? Click leave, because your camera can't work in 2 places. So leave the, make sure you've got that link copied, and then leave this room and go to the island. I'll sit here for a while in case anyone gets lost. And when you get to the island, you'll find there's a little person called Tech Support. Phil Tech Support is called, who can help you if you're confused about GatherTown.
Can I just ask one more question?
Yes.
While we're doing the round table, will someone give a sign saying we all go back now to Zoom?
I will do that.
Okay.
I will do that. And we are going to meet back in the Zoom we're leaving now and starting 11:09. And then we are meeting back in the Zoom at 12 o'clock.